Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. I hope you're doing well, and if you're not, I hope you are soon. Okay, today on the channel we have a crowdfunding preview, and we are taking a look at Fairy Tale. And Fairy Tale is a critter crawl, a kind of beast epic adventure game, and I would say that if you are a fan of something like Lands of Galzir, or something like Mice and Mystics, or Aftermath, or Redwall, those kinds of things, then you might want to take a look at this game. In this video, we will do a quick unboxing, and then we will briefly work through the quick start guide in order to get a sense of how the game is set up and how the game is played. Now, one thing, if you are thinking about backing this, you might want to consider the size of the box. It's an odd shape. It's meant to be kind of like a tree, an old large tree, so it's a hexagon shaped box, and it is quite large. And so just to give you a point of comparison here, we have a typical kind of Fantasy Flight game square box for Eldritch Harbor, and here is the box for Fairy Tale. So it's kind of large and kind of an odd shape, so just keep that in mind. I know that is something that I keep in mind when I think about backing games, because I have a small house with a small hobby room, and I don't have a lot of space, especially for a box like this. But this is a very oddly designed box. It opens up, it's very nice, very elaborate. I think that's one thing you can say about this game is this would be kind of a critter crawl for families, and especially for people who like a lot of toy factor, a big toy factor in this game, a really strong table presence. So this is a prototype. I just want to make sure that I say that. I'm not sure if this reflects exactly how the game will be produced, so just keep that in mind as we look through the components here. And so here we have all of our trays for all of our plastic. There is a lot of plastic in this game, so if you like kind of ornate miniatures and you like painting and really making your games look nice, I think you'll get a lot out of this. But on the left hand side, we do have some of our cardboard, and we have these battle cards here where you will slide in the enemy cards to keep track of the combat. The combat is pretty interesting in this game. There is a lot of dice rolling and also kind of a resource management style game, or resource management style components, I should say, mechanism. We have all of our chits here, and these are for different items, different types of weapons, and different types of armor that you can get. I'll punch all of these out off camera. Different types of abilities that your characters can learn. The character creation process is pretty cool. You do have some choices in how you create your critter for the critter crawl, and everything has a slot and a space to fit in. So like I said, this game does have a pretty great table presence. And here we have our 4 different characters, and they do all have specific names. So let me make sure I get those right. We can turn to our quick start guide. The quick start guide is pretty cool. It walks you through everything on how to set up the game, how to set up your character, and how to get going. So we have Christian the hamster. We have Zenon the pug. We have Eliana the cat. And we have Hector the gecko. I really like Hector the gecko. I think he's pretty cool. All right, we also have our map tiles, and these have puzzle pieces, and they are double-sided. And each of the stories, each of the chapters that you are working through will use a different configuration of these map tiles. I do really like a lot of the art. I think the line work and the shading is really nice on these. So again, it just has a really, really nice and pleasant look. So if you're looking for a game with good vibes, I think this would also be something that you might want to check out. And then we have, let's see what else we have here. So these are all of the sideboards that get connected to the character boards as puzzle pieces, where you can keep track of all of your wooden tokens that are used for attacking and for overcoming challenges and for defending and for your character's special abilities and their weapons and their armor. So these are really cool, and as you create your character, as you select the different things your character will have, you will take these and you will attach them to your player board like a puzzle. And we will do that on camera so you can see how that works, because it's pretty neat. On this tray here, we have all of our wooden tokens and all of our little plastic gems These are these ever gems, and those are used for different things depending on the story that you were playing or depending on the character that you were using. And then we have all of these tokens. So we have really nice wooden tokens here for health. We have tokens for diplomacy. We have tokens for craftsmanship, and these are used for overcoming different challenges. We have wooden tokens here for aiming and hitting. We have some wooden tokens here for speed. These are often used for triggering your defensive abilities. We have wooden tokens here for attacking, for defending, and then different types of attacks. We have piercing and cutting, and we have slashing and smashing, and then we have some power tokens. So those will all get dumped into that tray there. I will do that off camera when we get ready to set up the game. And then here we have some of our heroes and enemies and some of the other components that you will be setting up. Like I said, I think the minis are really good. Now I have two different quality of minis here in this prototype. I'm not sure which will be used in the final production. This mini here, this is, I believe this is a badger or a beaver, and this is one of the enemies here, and he's really nice. It has some really good detail. So this is a little higher quality than this hero mini. So this is the cat hero mini there. So I'm not sure if this will be the final component quality or if that will be, but as you can see, there is quite a bit of difference in the amount of detail. And here we have this character here. I believe that is the hamster there. Really cool pose there with the cape coming up, really adds a lot of action there. And then here we have the gecko. I think for my little work through the quick start guide, I will pick the gecko because I think he's pretty cool. And then here we have another character, a pug, which looks like his sword is broken off. So again, this is a prototype. So don't dwell too much on the quality of the components because I'm sure they will change. And then each of the characters will also have a little basket, and the basket is where they can store their little ever gems. God, that's so cute. It's so charming. So again, if you like Toy Factor, I think you're going to want to pay attention to this game. We have these treasure chests, and those can be set out on the map, and those can be opened, and I believe things probably like ever gems can be stored in those. So that is one of the trays there. And then in the other tray here, we have some enemies, some enemy minis. And we only get a few in this prototype, but we get one of our main enemies here is this fox. That's a really large mini. So again, people who are into painting will probably get a lot out of this. I'm not into painting plastic, so you know, mine will always have these kind of gray globs of plastic out. And here we have some of the enemies. These are badgers there in kind of a formation there with their shields and spears. That is super cool. And then here we have some rat enemies. Very nice. Okay, I'll put those away. And we have in this tray here, we have some of our cards and some of our dice. And so the dice, each of the weapons that you choose has 4 associated dice with it. And the really cool thing about this game is it does scale all the way down to true solo. And we have some scaling rules here. When you are playing full solo, you will take your 4 weapon dice for when you are attacking, and you will also take 4 underdog dice, and you will also always roll those. So you have a little bit of a better chance, because when you get into combat, you actually want to build sets of the different types of damage in order to damage an enemy. And so this game does encourage that kind of working together as a team to make a set of damage tokens so you can damage the enemy. And so that would be quite a bit harder if you're playing solo. And so with solo, we do have these additional underdog dice. I do like that. It seems very thoughtful as far as the solo scaling goes. And it scales all the way from 1 to 4 heroes. Now these are the hero action cards, and each of the heroes will have 10 basic action cards. And these action cards, you can upgrade those as you are playing through the campaign. There's a few different ways to play through the game. You can play through a campaign, which is a storybook. I would say that this game is also a pretty significant kind of conglomeration, a marriage of board game and choose your own adventure. And I'll show you some of the choose your own adventure aspects as we take a look at the end of this video at one of the stories. There are a lot of branching paths, and so you can play a campaign mode where you work through a number of stories. You can play the chapters as standalone games, and there's also something that they're calling a story twist mode, but I'm not sure what that is, and that is something that they will make available through the Kickstarter or through the crowdfunding campaign. And what I'm imagining that is some way to add some variability to the various stories and chapters so you have some replay value maybe during multiple campaigns or through different stories. And so we have our characters, we have our basic action cards, don't have a badge at the top here, and our upgraded action cards do have a badge. And so as you're playing through the campaign, you can upgrade your character. Now the action cards are used for gathering materials, gathering all of those wooden resources, so you can spend those on combat, you can spend those on overcoming challenges. And when you take like a gather action, you can gather the things on the left side. When you use your cards for an action, you can do the actions here on the right side. So here we have all of the cat cards, we have all of our pug cards, we have our hamster cards, that's really delightful, and we have our gecko cards. So I'll put the gecko cards aside, and I will also go ahead and draw, I believe it's 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, so 10 of our basic cards. And so those will be the cards that I will use when I am playing. And then we have our enemy cards here. Okay, so here we have all of our enemy cards. They are double-sided with just a portrait on the back. So we have that enemy there. I believe that is the beaver. He's one of the enemies. He's one of the main bad guys. And then we have our badgers with the shields and the spears. And in the prototype, we also have our rat. And we also have our main bad guy is the fox there. So we have 4 different enemies in this prototype. And then we also have, which is kind of stuck in here, we also have this story die. And the story die is rolled at kind of the beginning of each phase of each turn during a story. And depending on what you roll, that will trigger certain things to happen in the story. So even though you might be playing through the same story, there are still some randomized things that might happen depending on what you roll on that story die. And the final thing, this is another thing that I'm not too jazzed on, but the biggest thing in this box here is a very, very large plastic dice tray. Or dice tower, I should say. Now this thing is really nice, and if people are into painting, somebody could make this look pretty great. Personally, I would rather see this space taken up by more cardboard than something like this. I'm not sure if this is a thing that is going to be in every base pledge. This could be an extra, I don't know, but this is a pretty elaborate piece of toy factor here, and nicely painted and set up on the board. I think this could add a pretty big wow factor to your game. But I will get some of the stuff kind of cleaned up now, and I'll come back and we'll kind of work through that quick start guide to get an idea of what this game is like. Okay, so here I have everything punched out and laid out, and kind of everything here is for the character. I do have our dice tower over there, so as you can see as that works. So we have different things, different shapes. Everything has a different shape, and everything kind of has a spot where it goes, which is kind of nice. So like, for instance, all of our different types of weapons are represented here on these different shaped leaves. And so depending on what kind of weapon your character will focus on, they will use a different shape. The same thing goes for the armor. The armor is represented on these different shaped mushrooms. Their defensive and offensive special powers are on these different shaped tokens here, and everything slots into your character board. And so when you start through the quick start guide, this will actually walk you through how to set up the game and how to play it. So the first thing we do is we pick our character. So I'm going to pick our gecko here. So let me kind of move this off to the side as we build out our character. So there is my gecko board there. And then so we would take Hector the gecko, take the hero player board, part and a miniature representing the gecko, and place it in front of you. And then we completely fill up all of the components that will be on our character board. And for this, we will need our health, we will need our crafting, and we will also need our diplomacy. Okay, so after we have picked our character, we turn to the next page, and then we get to choose our weapon. And we have a couple of different choices. So we have a longsword, a dagger, a blowgun, and if you're playing with 4 players, we have an additional dagger. Now, seeing as how the gecko here is kind of represented with a bow, I think I should take the ranged weapon. So I will go ahead and take the blowgun for my character. I already have the dice for my blowgun there, so I will take those as well. And because I'm setting up for 1 player, I will also take my underdog dice. And then we will take our weapon board, and let me find the blowgun shaped weapon board. So here we have that. And then we have our blowgun shaped leaf, and that slots right in there like that. Now, if I were to later upgrade that to a bow, then I could place my bow like that. So all of the ranged weapons will be represented by this leaf shape here. So we will take that, and then we will also, I believe, fill that up with all of these tokens here. Place 2 of the hit and aim wooden components in the designated slots. So let me draw a couple of those. So I will take those. So again, these are a currency. These are a resource that I can spend in order to do that kind of damage. And let me put my blowgun token there on my player board. So now my weapon is all set up. And the next thing you do is you choose your armor. And we have a couple different types of armor. We have padded armor, a chain shirt, a breastplate, and if you're playing with 4 players, you will have an additional chain shirt. I think I will take the padded armor because that sounds like something that goes good with a ranged character. And so let me take my padded armor board here. Let me find that. So we have our breastplate, chain, and looks like padded armor there. And my padded armor is this mushroom here, which will give me 2 defense and 2 speed. So I will place that there, and then we will place 2 defense tokens in the padded armor slots like that. And then this will go off to the left side of our character. Okay, the next step is to pick our offensive path. And so this is something that can make our characters a little different in how they attack. And so we have the path of the duel and the path of war. And we also have, if you're playing 3 and 4 players, you have duplicates of both of those. So if you're playing with 2 players, you each need to pick a different path. I will go ahead and pick the path of the duel. And so let me find my path card here. Let's see, path of the duel here is this acorn shape. So I will place that there. One of the power tokens on it. So let me find my power tokens there. And so those get slotted in just like that. And then once we choose our path of our offensive path, that gets slotted in there, and then that gets attached to our weapon. So our character is just about done. All we need to do next is we need to choose our defensive path. So we have path of endurance and path of avoidance. I like the sound of path of avoidance, so I will go ahead and take that there. And with the path of avoidance, we place a speed token. So I will place that there, and then this will also get slotted into our character board, just like that. I mean, how cool is that? When I said this game has a lot of table presence and a big toy factor, I really meant it. So there is our character. We have all of our starting tokens, and I don't believe we start with any of these, but if we gain these, we can place those like that. So maybe this pine cone can be placed like that. And we might have different things and different powers that we can do depending on the different paths that we have chosen. And so there is some pretty meaningful decisions. There are some meaningful decisions to think about while you are creating your character, because you can mix and match these in different configurations. So we have a few more things to do. when we create our character, I've already drawn my 10 starting action cards, so I will give those a quick shuffle. And then depending on how many players you are playing with, you will draw a certain number into your hand. So for one player, you will draw 6 action cards. So we will do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I will place those just off to the side there. So this is my starting hand of 6 action cards. We will also take our little hero basket and we will place that there. And we will fill that with 1 blue Evergem. So I will drop that in there. Okay, so our character is done. So I'm going to move the character just off camera here. This game does take up quite a bit of space. I mean, look how big one character board takes. So I'm very happy for my table setup, for my table space, that this game does play true solo, because I think I would have a hard time on a 3x4 table. I might be able to fit 2 characters, but any more than that would probably be impossible on a small table. So that is one other thing that you might want to keep in mind. So now we get to the story portion of the quick start guide. And this says, now our soon-to-be hero has all the elements at their disposal to explore the world, face enemies in combat, and perform challenges. But how would they accomplish any of this if they remain idle in their small wooden cabin? With a deep breath and a sigh, our hero gathers their courage, steps into the unknown, and ventures forth into the wild, ready to embrace whatever destiny has in store. After all, they can't be named a hero yet if they don't perform their first heroic deed. And now it walks you through on how to set up the different map tiles. So we will place tile 9A into the center of the board, and that's where we are going to start. Okay, so after placing our hero on 9, then we are on board number 9 here, the forest. We then read 9. Our soon-to-be hero arrives in the forest where vibrant green leaves stretch as far as the eye can see. The melody of birds chirping and the soft rustling of leaves fill the air, guiding them as they venture deeper into the heart of the woods. The forest, alive with magic and wonder, welcomes their first steps on this grand adventure. I think that the writing is pretty good. I think people will enjoy reading it. What I like is looking through one of the available stories that I saw. The writing is kept to a minimum, so you're not reading pages and pages. You are reading small little paragraphs and sentences, so I think that is a good thing. Now, this says to place 3B in this configuration, but I believe that is a misprint. So guys, you may want to take a look at that. I believe it's supposed to be 3A there. So I'm not sure which is misprinted, the tile or the quick start guide, but we will go ahead and place 3A like that. And so that is how the tiles work, just like a little puzzle. Very nice, very handy. Okay, so we've placed our tiles like that, and now we have an option. We can search the forest, or we can continue moving forward. Let's go ahead and search the forest. So we will read 10. Okay, so our soon-to-be hero feels certain that the forest holds many secrets and they are determined to uncover them. After all, the forest is vast and teeming with mysterious creatures, with mysteries and creatures. As they wander deeper, they come upon a poor squirrel caught in a makeshift net hanging high up from a tree. Whoever set this trap must be truly heartless. The squirrel, noticing the hero, springs to life and pleads, "Please, free me from this trap." Okay, so we have 2 options. We can try to free the squirrel, or we can ignore the desperate pleas of the squirrel and continue moving forward. Let's try to free the squirrel. So we will turn to paragraph 13. Now, the actual storybook and the guidebook and rulebook will be spiral bound. At least that's what I've seen. So they won't take up a ton of space on your table. You'll be able to fold the pages over. They look really nice. But let's look at 17 here. So 17, place 2 of the wooden components. So these components here, what were they called again? Those are called the craftsmanship. So place 2 of those. Place 2 craftsmanship on any map point on 9A. Okay, so that kind of represents our challenge there. So we need to remove these in order to rescue the squirrel. These wooden components represent a challenge with a difficulty of 2, written in game terms, craftsmanship 2 challenge. Our soon-to-be hero approaches the trap, carefully inspecting it to find a way to disable it and free the unfortunate squirrel high above on a nearby tree. A system of rope pulleys holds the net shut, suspended in the air. If I can reach them and cut the ropes, they think, I can free the trapped squirrel. Perform a craftsmanship 2 challenge, begin the encounter, and read 18. So 18, this tells us how to do our challenges. So challenges always happen during the encounter phase. To perform a craftsmanship challenge, play an action card from your hand that has that symbol. Okay, to overcome that challenge, I have to play a card from my hand that has that craftsmanship icon there. And that tells me how many dice I get to roll. So I will play that. I think that's the best one I have. I'm sure as we start upgrading our cards, these will be better. So I will play that, and then I will grab one of my weapon die, and I will grab one of the underdog die. To overcome the challenge, I want to either roll a green side on my weapon die or an orange side on the underdog die. So I need 2 to succeed. And I have 1, so we can remove that one. Now, in a normal story, if you failed, then something might trigger. You might lose time. You might have to take time to do the test again. An event might trigger if you lose. But for this quick start guide, we will just adjust that to an orange side, so that way we can overcome both of the challenges, and we have now freed the squirrel. When you have succeeded at least 2 times by rolling at least 2 green or orange sides, and all the wooden components have been removed from the tile, you have successfully completed the challenge. Read 19. The soon-to-be hero climbs the trees with determination, carefully tinkering with the trap's pulley system. They pull, cut, and thrust until at last the rope gives way and the net slowly descends, opening up to free the trapped squirrel. "Oh, thank you, my hero," says the squirrel with heartfelt gratitude. "Who knows how long I would have been caught in that nasty net if it weren't for you. I have nothing to repay you with, but you will forever have my eternal gratitude. Take care, hero. I hope to see you again soon," says the grateful squirrel as it scurries away, climbing up a large oak tree with a wide, hollow trunk. You now know how challenges work. So I really like that. I like for when there is a challenge, you will place your tokens out, and that represents how many successes that you have to have, and then you can remove those to see how many successes you have left. Very handy. This game is very visual. Everything has a visual component and a visual quality to it. It has a tangible quality to it. And so even though a lot of the story, a lot of the events and the narration is taking place in a storybook, you are still interacting with, you are still manipulating things on the board. So that's a really good kind of marriage of game book and board game components. So we now know how challenges work. You could complete the quick play or go to option 2 to see how combat rules. Read 9 and continue moving forward to see how combat works. So let's go back to 9 here. Okay, 9, we can continue moving forward, place 3B, connecting it and showing the image, and then read 11. Okay, we did that. So now let's go to 11. Place the rat's miniature on 3B and move your hero. Okay, so let me find the rat's miniature. Okay, so here we have our rats, and then I will move our hero over to 3B or 3A as it were. And let's continue reading. Our soon-to-be hero leaves the forest behind and steps into a vast open plain. On the horizon, they spot the silhouette of a rough band of rats, drawing closer with each passing moment. As the rats approach, the hero realizes that they are armed to the teeth with knives and ready for a fight. "Drop your weapons, traveler, and give us everything you carry," commands one. "Yes, my precious, do as you are told, or you will soon regret it," says another in a squeaky yet menacing tone. These are not regular rats. They are the infamous mini mischief makers. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. This game is very charming. Known troublemakers among the creatures of the forest, our soon-to-be hero must defend themselves and drive away the rat menace from the plains before hurting other less fortunate critters. So we will begin combat. We will read 12. So this tells us how to set up our combat. So we will take the rat's deck and separate R2 and R3 enemy cards. Place them face up inside the combat board with the R2 enemy card showing. Okay, so we need to find R2 and R3. So there's R1, very, very tiny. This could definitely be made bigger just to make it easier to spot on the table so you don't have to squint and look. So we need R2 and R3. We'll take those, we can take the rest of those and put those off to the side. And we will slide these into this combat board here with R2 on top. So that gets slid in like that. So there is our board there. And then we will also take health markers and we will place 2 under each of the 5 slots. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have our enemy board set up. There are 5 units, 5 different rats. And each one of those rats has 2 hit points. And so we need to defeat them all in order to move on. So then we can move on to number 13. And this tells us how to attack. So roll your weapon dice and underdog dice, if any, and keep them according to your player count. So we'll take all of our dice. We have our 4 hero dice here for our weapon. We have our 4 underdog dice. And then for the scaling, you look at how many dice you can keep. So player count, we can dice rolled 4, dice kept 3. So we can keep 3 of each. So let's go ahead and roll those. So to defeat this enemy, we actually look at the numbers associated with the different types of attacks. And so the rats here, they only need that type of attack. So they need piercing and cutting. And so we can look at our dice here and we can see if we have any piercing or any cutting symbols. And we can only keep 3 of each. However, I have no piercing and no cutting symbols. So I actually can't do damage to any of the rats, unfortunately. My character is kind of at a disadvantage here as far as attacking the rats because my character does aim and hit damage. And so that would not be very beneficial, but this could be a complex combat. I think if we look at our dice here, yeah, so I actually don't roll any of the symbols needed to defeat those rats, but on my underdog die, there are some symbols that I can use in order to defeat those rats. Now, I did roll a couple of my symbols here, and these can be traded 2 for 1. So I could stack these 2 and do 1 point of damage to 1, removing the health. But we also have an opportunity to, from our hand, we can also play a card in order to add some icons there. So I could do this card here for 3 hits, this card for an additional hit, and so on. And so what you want to do is you want to fill up those slots and you want to fill up a set. However, this is only one hit there. So the only set we're looking at is 1 sword or 1 attack. Some of the more complex enemies will need combinations of those icons, combinations of those wooden tokens that you will have to spend in order to do more damage. So as the enemies get more complex, as they require a bigger combination to complete a set to do damage, you will be relying more on the other heroes that are with you, or more on your underdog dice, or more on your action cards in order to overcome those combat challenges. After you have applied the damage to the enemy, they get to attack you. And on the right hand side, we have our defensive stats. And so we need to spend 1 movement token in order to prevent the damage coming to us. Now on my character board, I do have 1 movement token, so I can assign that there, and then that will prevent the damage coming onto me. And so the damage that they would do to me is 2. And so that is how attacking and defending works. So after you've freed the squirrel and you've learned how a challenge works, after you have defeated the rats and you have learned how the combat works, that ends the quick start guide. And now you know pretty much the basics of how to play a game of Fairy Tale. Let's take a quick look though at an example of a story and the different stories that you will work through. And so this tells you here how to set up the story. This is, I believe, story number 2. This is called Whiskers in the Wheat. This is the only story that I had available to me, but this walks you through how to set it up. There are different ever gems, and so the ever gems are those little crystals there, and each story will tell you what the different ever gems do. We have what the blue ever gems do. We have the yellow and the red ever gems, and those are things that are dictated by the roll of the story die at certain points, kind of at the beginning of each turn. And as you can see here, the stories do get more complex, but the reading doesn't get more. So you're not going to be pausing the game a lot to read a ton of text. But as you read through this text here, then you will roll the story die, and then you will have a number of different options. Let's read through this just as an example. Upon our hero's arrival, the barn stood silent and nothing seemed amiss, yet an unshakable unease lingered in the air. Perhaps it was the emptiness, or perhaps the grave warnings of the groundhog still echoed in our heroes' minds. They could not yet say, But one thing was certain: their determination to uncover the truth urged them forward. For mysteries left unsolved have a way of growing darker with time. So now I would roll the ever die, and I rolled a red ever die. So I would look at, not the ever die, the story. This is the story die. I rolled a red ever gem. So now I would see what happens when I rolled that, depending on the story that you are in. But now we have these options. 1, any hero may perform a craftsmanship 2 challenge, and then if you succeed, certain things happen. We can move to 5B and read 4, we can move to 8A and read 16, or we can move to 11A and read 20. If we have already read 11 and have already solved the challenge at 5, read 5. So as you can see, the story does get more complex, and there are quite a few branching paths in each story. I'm not sure how many stories the game will come with. I'm not sure how big the campaign is, or if there will be also a series of standalone stories, or if you just play through the chapters in the campaign. I'm not sure of a lot of the details, but overall, I think you have kind of an idea of how the game plays. When you are working through a chapter, we have exploration phases, and then we have kind of challenge and combat phases. And so there will be a time spent in the book, there will be a time rolling dice and playing cards to overcome challenges, and there will be a time to roll dice, spin cards, and some of your wooden tokens to overcome your combat challenges. So overall, I think this game is pretty neat. It's very charming, and I like that. I like charming games. I like Beast Epics a lot. I really like, things like Redwall and Book of the Dun Cow is one of my favorites, The Secret of Nim. I like Critter Crawl games like Lands of Galzir. So I think this game has a lot to offer. It looks really great on the table. And so if you're playing with your family and you like a lot of toy factor, your kids can manipulate these things. Everything has its place, which is really visually appealing. And the thing that I'm most kind of weary about is the huge and oddly shaped box, because just looking at my shelves, looking at my small gaming room in my small house, I don't really have a lot of space. I wouldn't even know where to put this box right now. I would have to take some games to storage, and I'm not exactly sold on this huge plastic dice tower. I'm hoping that this is an add-on, maybe something that comes with the super deluxe version. I would actually really like to see this game have a standee option, because for me, I would much rather have colorful cardboard standees than these gobs of gray plastic. But that's just because I am not a miniatures painter and I will never paint these. So if I play the game, I will always have these gray gobs of plastic on my table to look at. And I would greatly prefer a really nice cutout cardboard standee of these characters, because I think that would look great. And I also think having kind of a 2D representation of those characters kind of, for me, makes the cartoon quality kind of pop off the table a little more than the miniatures. But anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this preview of the Fairy Tale Prototype. I believe it will be hitting Kickstarter or crowdfunding. I'm not sure where it is. I will post a link below, but it will be hitting just a day or two after I post this video. So all right, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this video. We will talk to you later. Bye-bye.